So along with the scientific revolution, the other big change in thinking during this age of reason was this development called the Enlightenment. I want to look at what the sort of basic ideas and ideologies of the Enlightenment were. If you're in my world history class, you already looked at some of the individual philosophers, so we won't go over that. But we'll look at sort of the overall framing of the Enlightenment. So what is the Enlightenment? Basically, take those ideas of the scientific revolution we talked about, critical thinking, experimentation, look for formulas and natural law, apply to society. That's the Enlightenment. It's basically a social critics looking at society and trying to figure out how they can improve it. There's a lot of ideals and ideas in the Enlightenment. Here's sort of some big framing ideas that you see throughout different Enlightenment thinkers. One key one is the idea of rationalism. We saw this in the Renaissance, the idea that you should look for, the truth in things and sort of think scientifically. Increased that to a much higher degree, and that's the rationalism of the Enlightenment. Now is the idea that reason, that rational thought, should be the only and the key, measure of whether an idea is good or whether something's true. It trumps things like religious ideology or political ideology. Basically, the idea is, what's your evidence? Why can you back it up? Like I said, the scientific revolution, the Enlightenment comes out of the scientific revolution. So scientific thinking, looking for natural laws, looking for formula, looking for evidence and experimentation. Those are some of the key ideas in the Enlightenment, except they're applying those not just to science, but to human society. Enlightenment thinkers were also optimistic. There was this idea that the world could change, and it could change for the better. That's not a brand new idea, but you see that through a lot of Enlightenment thinkers, that they're trying to figure out, okay, this is the way the world is, how can we improve it? How can humanity develop further and improve more? Enlightenment thinkers also tend to be more secular. Again, we saw secularism in the Renaissance. There was the idea that you could enjoy the here and now in addition to the afterlife. But in the Enlightenment, often it's this emphasis of rational thought over religion, critical views of religion that you saw, not even in the Reformation where people are critical of the church. Now people are critical of just the idea of religion in general, and more questioning and critical of those ideas. And another emphasis for Enlightenment thinkers is education. You'll see this idea that education is necessary for a full human life, that you can't really enjoy your freedom and enjoy your exercise your thought if you weren't well educated. So a lot of Enlightenment thinkers promote education. The thinkers in Enlightenment were called philosophers. Philosophe is just the French word for philosopher, but when we use the word philosophe, we're talking about the social critics during the Enlightenment. So when we hear the word philosophe, that's who we're talking about. Out of the criticism of religion in the Enlightenment comes this new sort of religious ideology called Deism. Deism was a sort of religious practice, not a formal church per se, but really just sort of this idea that, okay, a lot of our ideas about religion involve things like miracles and the Bible and human revelation and these kind of things. Deism basically says that you should reject those sort of miraculous things and exercise reason to look at religion. That's not to say deists didn't believe in God, although that's often what they were accused of. They said, look at the universe. It operates on these natural laws. It's almost like a big watch or a big clock. And they saw God as the clockmaker, somebody who came in, created the universe, and then basically left it alone. And they saw, the miracles and stories of the Bible as basically just sort of pious mythology. But to deists, the real exercise of religion was in scientific thought. Their argument basically was, if God made man and man is rational, and the universe is rational, we can look at the universe and figure out, here's how things move, here's how we can measure them, and here's how we can understand them. Newton's whole idea that the universe operated by laws which could be understood by man, that was proof enough that God existed. and that God wanted people to be reasonable and rational and exercise rational thought. So deists will often reject what might think is more traditional religion in favor of sort of this scientific religion, that exercise in science was in fact religious piety, and that God existed, but God wasn't sort of moving everything behind the curtains, that the universe was created, and that itself was evidence enough. And then in the next video here, we'll talk about how the Enlightenment spread.